LA Tenants Union is calling for an eviction moratorium. They say thousands of immigrants will be unable to pay their bills come July 1st because avoiding detainment is taking priority over going to work.
This terrorizing of our communities have closed down businesses. We need the city to put a rent freeze. We need the city to protect tenants because they cannot pay their rent. I am undocumented and I refuse to go back to the shadows.
These huge protests have cost the city a whopping $19.7 million.
Let's get at it. Let's talk about it. So $19 million for a week's worth of protests and shenanigans and hijinks. How, my honest question, how does a city survive under that kind of crushing weight of expenses and destruction and complete and utter chaos? How do they survive? And we're going to be looking at California out here. We're going back out to LA. We're going to be looking at this new push to absolve illegals of their rent obligations because they got booted out by ICE or because they've been detained, whatever of that nature, and they can't pay the rent. So landowners and mortgage holders and landlords should not expect payment because these people are illegal and such of that nature. This can't be sustainable. It really can't. But let's get at it. Let's get talking about it. Here we go. Let's go.
Union, along with some other major labor unions, are joining forces today demanding action to protect Angelenos against immigration raids. The local SEIU 721 labor union, along with CREW and the Tenants Union, are asking the LA City Council to pass an emergency protection to help families who may face eviction due to the immigration raids. The unions say many families may not be able to cover rent due to a family member who may have been taken by ICE or who have family who may not be able to leave their homes due to fear of kidnapping. The groups claim Latinos make up majority of renters in the city of LA. They also say local residents have had enough to deal with, from COVID to the economic crisis and our deadly firestorm. Now the raids are creating unnecessary fear.
Nowadays, I mean, you don't know who's a cop, who's an ICE agent, now who's a bounty hunter, and now I can be dressed as a cop.
Exactly. The Los Angeles tenant.
How do you sustain a society when there are no laws? When you can literally have people breaking the law, marching for the right to continue to break the law? How do you remain a civil society? How does a society keep its wits about them when you're literally watching people violate the law in 4K? Who pays for that? Who pays for an eviction moratorium? So let's say you're a landowner, you're a landlord, and you have rented out your apartment and you didn't know, but you rented it out to 3 people who are illegals and they are not able to work or whatever that nature. What are the other 5 tenants supposed to do? You have an 8-tenant unit. What are they supposed to do? What stops the other 5 from saying, hey, I can't work either. I don't have the money either. How does that work? This is utter chaos.
Certainly not sustainable. It's critical, and as the mayor and members of the council have said, the city will maintain public safety, but this level of extraordinary deployment is very expensive. Every day that we need to have this deployment, it's costing the taxpayers millions.
Now, as for the roughly $20 million costs from these protests, Szabo says the city will pay for them using mostly money from its reserves. Szabo says he's always concerned when the city needs to dip into that rainy day fund, but he says that fund is there for unplanned events just like this.
The numerous protests against ICE raids and the No King's Day event have cost the city of Los Angeles millions of dollars. The city recently balanced its budget after facing a roughly $1 billion deficit.
Thousands of.
So, I mean, LA's been having a rough 2025. You had the fires. We've had runaway inflation. Now you got these riots. Literally, it seems like every quarter, every couple months at least, they're having some kind of financial trauma. How in the world do you sustain this? How do you sustain this? You can blame ICE all you want to, but are you not asking the question, why do we have so many illegal aliens that are just willing to work in our country and not do the right thing of going through the right process and the right avenues to actually become legal citizens? What's stopping them from doing that? What is stopping somebody who's been in America for 5 years, 6 years, 10, 15, 20 years, and just going ahead and becoming a citizen? What's stopping them? That's got to be a question that has to be asked. It needs to be asked and needs to be honest reflection over that. Why are you here? You're not legal. Why? Why? You could go about the process. Now, if you got here yesterday, then that's different. But we're talking about people who've been here many, many years. Why? And then also, why are business owners and the such of that nature so willing to hire people that are not legal, that it strangles off your economy? Just something to think about.
Officers working overtime and some agitators turning destructive. We knew there was going to be a huge cost to you, the taxpayer. And now we have the numbers. These huge protests have cost the city a whopping $19.7 million. That's according to the city's administrative officer. Now, much of that $19.7 million is coming from the LAPD at nearly $17 million. We're going to break down this number a little bit further in just a few seconds. But we can also see the response from the LAFD has cost $1.2 million. There's been nearly $600,000 in damage to city buildings. The street cleaning for city streets has cost over $500,000, and there's been at least $85,000 in graffiti cleanup.
I don't believe those numbers. I don't believe those numbers at all. Let me bring that back up. A couple things. They said damage to city buildings. That's only city buildings. That's not private property. That's not other properties that have been destroyed. Graffiti cleanup, only 85,000. I'm sorry. Either A, you didn't clean all the graffiti off, because the graffiti I saw was everywhere. But also, I'm wondering if this is only counting graffiti cleanup on city buildings. We saw graffiti cleanup on graffiti on tons of buildings all over the place. I don't see anything about private property damage. See, I think this is only what the city is paying, because we saw all those cars destroyed, businesses looted and burned out. None of that stuff is included in these numbers up here. Yeah, I don't think this is at all reflective of what really, this number is probably 5 times more. When the smoke clears, no pun intended, I bet you if this number was $100 million, I wouldn't be surprised, because there was just so much chaos going on. Sure, it wasn't widespread. It wasn't all over everywhere. But I mean, like, what about cars? Police cars. Remember those 6 police cars that were damaged on I think it's called the I-10, and they were throwing bricks off the overpass? Where is that? Where would that fall under? Is that under LAPD response? Or is that number just overtime police officers? Tell me what it is. There's a lot of numbers in here I just don't think are reflected at all. But let's go.
We are told that number is going to climb. So let's kind of hone in on that LAPD number of nearly $17 million. The vast majority of that, more than $11 million, is just because of officer overtime. The city administrator officer says on Saturday during those huge protests, nearly every single LAPD officer was working. So as you can imagine, the OT was just racking up. There's also been $240,000 in vehicle damage to LAPD cruisers. The city administrative officer, Matt Zabo, tells 7 on Your Side that these are extraordinary events with, of course, now an extraordinary cost.
The Dodgers have broken.
Okay, sorry about that. We watched at least 6 police cars get pelted with bricks and all that kind of stuff. At least 6. So am I to believe that each one of those cars was only worth $40,000, and those are the only 4 cars, or 6 cars rather, that were destroyed and damaged? Really? No, they were far more than that. And a police car is a lot of technology. Those things are worth far more than just your run-of-the-mill, pick off the buy here, pay here lot. I'm sorry, those numbers are I don't think they expect anybody they're giving you some numbers. They'll never bring those numbers back, so that in 5 months they won't say, hey, after further review, we realize those riots in June cost XYZ. They're never going to come back to it. So they just give you some numbers. They're the lowest numbers they can possibly get away with, and they know nobody's going to come back and ask them more questions, because there's no way those numbers are right.
that LAPD number of nearly $17 million. The vast majority of that, more than $11 million, is just because of officer overtime. The city administrator officer says on Saturday during those huge protests, nearly every single LAPD officer was working. So as you can imagine, the OT was just racking up. There's also been $240,000 in vehicle damage to LAPD cruisers. The city administrative officer, Matt Zabo, tells 7 on Your Sides that these are extraordinary events with, of course, now an extraordinary cost.
The Dodgers have broken their silence on the recent immigration raids, announcing today the team will commit $1 million to help families who are affected. They made the announcement on X, saying that this will be in partnership with the city of Los Angeles and that more community efforts are to come. This comes one day after the Dodgers say federal agents tried to gain access to the stadium parking lot, sparking protests. The team said in a statement, in part, quote, "What's happening in Los Angeles has reverberated among thousands upon thousands of people, and we have heard the calls for us to take a leading role on behalf of those affected. We believe that by committing resources and taking action, we will continue to support and uplift the communities of greater Los Angeles."
I think that's a great way to end it right there. So I'm a legal taxpaying citizen who doesn't break any laws, so I'm out of luck. That's about how it cooks. Let me know what y'all think about this. Is your city doing anything different for, rent moratoriums or food drives for illegals or anything of that nature? Just some of the things we've seen have been pretty gross. But what are they doing for your actual citizens? What are they doing for the citizenry of your communities? I'd love to know that as well. So thank you so much for rocking with us. Down in the comments, let me know about your city. What are they doing? If you don't mind. Also, thank you for hitting the like button. It does help get this video out. Every time you hit that like button, it gets this video out and lets more people know about what we're doing over here. And also, thank you so much for subscribing. We're getting closer to our goal of 50,000 subscribers. I'm looking forward to celebrating with you all real soon. And until then, everybody, grace and peace. Take care.